Good morning, Professor Pittman. Key 4, be passionate, be proud. Leaders are passionate about who they are and what they're doing and who they're being and what they're thinking. And if they're not proud of what they're doing and all that, they stop and change something without hesitation. You know, one of the ideas that I was encouraged to consider as a young child was just muscle through it. Listen, bite the bullet. If you don't like it, you got to do it anyway. Well, the truth is you don't have to muscle through anything. And that's what I learned from my martial arts journey. If what you're doing really is congruent with what your ambitions and goals are and what's rifling through your head in terms of your thought process, it's not going to have to be an experience like you're biting the bullet. You know, in Jiu-Jitsu, if a student's having to use a lot of muscle and a lot of strength to get the certain job done, something's not quite right. They got to stop and they got to take a look at how they're thinking about this particular position. You know, so in a lot of cases, if a guy's willing to do something, perhaps, well, he's not doing it because it isn't in alignment with the outcome he or she wants to create as far as how he or she's thinking right now. So what you got to do is you got to make certain that you have this dialogue inside of your head that leaves you in a place where you're proud of what you're doing, and who you're being, and what you're about to do, even if you don't feel like doing it at the current moment. You know, here's an example. If you're like me, you're probably watching the Olympics. I love the whole Olympic Games thing. Man, these guys and gals are enthralled about it. They're passionate about being in the Olympics. Now, do you think that they're passionate about everything that they got to do and everything they have to do? Absolutely not. Meanwhile, the average person that you and I come in contact with doesn't have any ambition or pride in what they're currently doing at all. So the key is whatever it is that you decide to do or be or pursue or go after, you got to decide right now, there are going to be times that there are things I do not want to do, and that's okay. Can I choose a different dialogue inside of my mind that would leave me in a place where right now this is something that I will do, and I'll do so without hesitation? You know, if you have hesitation, then maybe there isn't an alignment with what you suggest you want to create, or maybe there isn't an alignment with your thoughts at the current moment. You know, case in point, like an example of jiu-jitsu might be when someone comes to me and says, well, I don't want to go to jiu-jitsu practice. Then I would ask them, well, what is it about the jiu-jitsu that you don't like that's different from what I don't like? You know, if I was to ask you, hey, how many jiu-jitsu lessons did you do last week? And you said none. And then I asked you why. You might say, well, I don't like this particular portion of the training. And then you asked me the same question. Well, how many lessons did you do this week? And I said, I did 3. And oh, by the way, I don't mind what it is that you don't really like. Well, the reason I'm able to say, yeah, I got my lessons in this week, and there is something about the training that I don't like, however, I'm not bothered by that. Why is that? It's because I have a dialogue where I understand what it is that I get to become through training, and I'm proud about it. Listen, if you don't like the outcome you're getting, you got to change the way you think. It's almost as though I've learned to stick up for the stuff that I don't like to do so that I can still gain the benefit that I desire. You know, for example, when I was a child, from time to time, I had to step up for one of my brothers a couple of times. And I can remember thinking, hey, I can pick on my brother. I can say a few disparaging remarks to him. I can smack him upside the head, but you don't get to do that. And so one of the things you got to keep in mind is you got to have that internal trigger where I'm going to change the way I think about the part I don't like so I get to earn a far greater experience than the current moment can offer me right now. You follow that? So be passionate about what you're doing, what you do. If you're not, you got to change what you're doing or change the dialogue and the outcome in your mind's eye of what it is you want to create. Listen, I'm no Zen Buddhist by any means, but there's a lot to be said for the whole, how a person does one thing, he does everything. Or before enlightenment, I chop wood, I carry water. After enlightenment, I chop wood, I carry water. So that's the key. Listen, it's my pleasure working with you today. Thank you so very much. I look forward to working with you next time. See you on the mat. In the meantime, listen, keep the faith, keep working. God bless.